How are you feeling?
Well,
How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
To give you some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the Sophie. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the Sophie. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the Sophie. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the Sophie. This is the final scene of
Marky got with Sharon, and Sharon got Sharia. She was sharing Sharon's outlook on the topic of disease. Mikey had a facial scar and Bobby was a racist. They were all in love with dying, they were doing it in Texas. Tommy played piano like a kid out in the rain, and then he lost his leg in Dallas. He was dancing with the train. They were all in love with dying, they were drinking from a fountain that was pouring like an avalanche coming down the mountain.
I don't mind the sun sometimes, the images it shows. I can taste you on my lips and smell you in my clothes.
What up, guys? Happy Friday. We did it. We made it through another week. And now we're going to do what we do every day, which is watch the Radical Revolutionary Far Left. It doesn't even feel like a Friday to me. I don't know why. It doesn't feel like a Friday. Maybe all the days are just stringing together for me at this point. The only difference is that I drink beer on Fridays. And I do have beer today. I've got a good selection of beer today. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys have something cold to drink because look at John Morgan's professional photo. Look at John looking dapper in a suit. Looks good, John. Well, you guys are going to need the drinks if you're going to be hanging out with us today, because the other day, so as you know, I have spies everywhere. I have spies all over the country in places that you would never expect. There are people in my community that are in graduate programs all over the country where they're mingling with the Marxists all the time. And they watch my content to be able to understand what the Marxists are saying, because they are not of the Marxists, they're just around them a lot. And I happened to have one of those people slide into my DMs the other day because they happened to be at an event with Sophie. And I was like, can you ask Sophie this question for me? And they were like, no, I'm not outing myself, Carl. And I was like, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. You don't have to, I'm not going to ask you to dox yourself for me. That's, probably reasonable. Okay. You added Sophie as a friend on Facebook? Has she replied yet? So my friend told me that Sophie was involved with something called critical midwifery studies. And they sent me this website. It is literally criticalmidwiferystudies.com. The Critical Midwifery Studies Collective. We all know collective means radical revolutionary socialist. The collective confronts systemic injustice in sexual, reproductive, maternal, and newborn care. Okay, well, that's interesting. So then I went to this page right here. Educate yourself. And I was confronted with this landing page. Online school humanizing birth. And this is from the summer of 2022. The collective organized a summer school inviting participants from all over the world to share their experiences and learn from experts of all kinds of backgrounds, medical, non-medical, surgical, and of course, indigenous. Now we want to share this information. Okay, well, this is sounding promising. You guys know that I like watching conferences. And there's a lot of videos that we can watch. There's a lot. They've got a section on humanizing birth. They've got anti-racist perspectives in birth. So that's looking promising. We should definitely take a look around there. Queer and decolonial perspectives. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, you're starting to speak my language now, aren't you? Feminist and indigenous perspectives, and we got a naked person giving birth over here. I don't know if I'm allowed to show that on YouTube, but it's medical. This is science. We're learning science right now, so it's okay. But we found our indigiqueer. We're always on the lookout for a good indigiqueer. Got a whole bunch of, and all these lectures are online. Post-colonial perspectives. Okay. And then we get to futurist perspectives. And who might be under futurist perspectives? You might wonder. Our queen. Our goddess. The only internet relationship that has never done me dirty. The ginger dragon. Sophie Lewis. If you are new to this channel, you are going to become best friends with Sophie. Just like we all have become best friends with Sophie. And Sophie loves us. I know she does. I know in her heart of hearts, Sophie absolutely loves and adores. Sophie is an Aries woman. Yes, we know Sophie's birthday. It's coming up, just like mine, because I'm an Aries woman too. And that's why Sophie and I get along so well. Because I'm an Aries and Sophie's an Aries. And Aries women have an unspoken... I'm sorry, I don't mean to misgender. Sophie is, of course, a non-binary they, them as a queer Marxist. She does use, I keep misgendering. They, them uses they, them pronouns. This is why we just say Sophie's name, because I don't want to be disrespectful. But as an Aries woman and an Aries they, them, we have an unspoken understanding. It's just the way it goes. Yeah, this is why Emmy O'Brien hates me so much, because Emmy O'Brien is Sophie's best friend. And Emmy O'Brien, I feel like, is protective of our Sophie. But Emmy O'Brien doesn't need to be afraid, because we would never hurt Sophie. We would never besmirch Sophie. All we want to do is bask in the brilliance of our favorite Abolish the Family's goddess's mind. That's all we want. I don't think it's too much to ask. I just want to admire. That's all. That's all. If Sophie was a tarot card, Sophie would be the star. That's all I'm saying. And Sophie understands tarot. Do you know how I know Sophie understands tarot? Because I joined Sophie's Patreon when Sophie put out on her Patreon a queer socialist tarot deck, because I wanted to see how Sophie was interpreting the tarot in queer. So I know she understands it, and I know she knows what I mean. So if we go into the queer futurist section, what's kind of cool about this conference is they did doodles. We get to Sophie's presentation. This conference did doodles for all the presentations. So look, this is Sophie in cartoon form. And this is the presentation we're going to watch today. A comradely politics of gestational labor. How might we care for and against uterine work? uterine work. This is why we love Sophie. No one can top our Sophie and her Sophie-isms. Uterine work. That means giving birth. That's what Sophie's talking about. Utopian relationalities. Imagine necessary, it's hard to read, frameworks to support gestor. I feel like that's not a full word. I'm not going to read this whole doodle, but this is basically notes from the presentation. Yeah, uterine work sounds like a type of nanotechnology. It really does, Sophie. It really does. But you know what? This was in Sophie's green wall period. All the presentations are on YouTube. You can see. This presentation has only had 16 views in 2 years. And you guys know that I love nothing more than finding a secret presentation that no one has ever watched. So like right now, today, we are going to give more views to this presentation than it's ever had. And I love that. I love it when we find this just like random shit that exists on the internet that no one knows about. But, you know, the important part is not how many views does this specific presentation have. The important part is we are getting them to articulate their perspectives in their own words. And when you have situations like this where you're finding a secret presentation that no one's watched, there is a significantly higher than average chance that you're going to hear something really, really, really crazy. And if they're saying it in this presentation, they're saying it in other places too. This just happens to be the one we got on video. All right. So we're, and the reason I say Sophie was in her green wall period, you can see here. You can see, I think. This is, it's very small, I understand, but this is Sophie over here. And the reason I say the green wall period is there was a period of time where every presentation Sophie did was in front of this green wall and she was wearing bright red clothes. Sophie must have been going through a phase. And she looked the same in every presentation. We watched it. This is from like 3 years ago. So this is a little bit of an older presentation, but that's okay. Sophie is constantly evolving, so we always give her the chance to do it. But you want to keep an eye out for the green wall period with Sophie, because it is during the green wall period, I believe, that Sophie was her most insane. And so I feel like Sophie has kind of started to temper a little bit because she knows that we're listening to everything she says now. She still says crazy stuff, but back in the green wall period, we got much more juicy clips from Sophie during the green wall period than any other Sophie time that we have encountered yet, all right? So this video is in the green wall period, and so I think it's going to be really great, and that is what we're going to be watching today for happy hour, and I hope you guys have your beer because I think that this is going to be a little bit of a doozy. But before we get into that, a couple quick things. Now, as you guys know, I have started a Twitter account and many other things as well called the Queer Marxism Project. This is something I'm going to be building out for a book, a couple of books. Actually, it's going to be even more than a couple of books. This is going to be a whole effing series of books. I'm going to tell you guys right now. I have like 15 books in my head that I want to write right now. I'm going to post a list to the Red Menace Collective Substack of all the books I want to write because I have a lot of ideas. As you guys know, I never have too many ideas. Never, ever, ever have I had too many ideas. Your Delta Light has 5 milligrams of THC in it. Everyday therapist. You never would expect. You never would expect. So I'm creating this thing called the Queer Marxism Project where there's going to be a website, there's going to be a Twitter account, there's a YouTube channel, there might be a couple other things too. And basically the whole point of this is I'm creating, I don't know why I'm just like not, my video isn't working now, whatever, maybe it'll fix itself. You guys can still hear me. What I'm doing is I'm creating a resource for people where if you want to understand the left's most dystopian ideology, you go to this place. It's going to be a companion place for the books that I'm writing. And it's just a place where it's like all the craziest shit on the internet is in one area where you know what it's kind of like libs of TikTok, but way more far leftist libs of TikTok and way more nuanced in the commentary that I'm doing. You can follow it at Queer Marxism on Twitter, and there'll be more information coming about this soon. I'm still building it out. I'm still building out the website for it, but the website is cool. I'm basically creating an online museum of this stuff. And our little plague doctor guy with the hat, he is our curator. He is the curator of the museum. His name is Grigory, as in Grigory Rasputin. And I'm just having fun with it. I'm putting a little bit of personality into it, I suppose. So, but the reason I bring this up is not to shill the Twitter account and to get you guys to follow the Twitter account, which you absolutely should, because there's some crazy video that's being posted there. The reason I want to point this out is this. I was logged into this Twitter account earlier. You can see I'm logged in down here in the lower left-hand corner, right? I was logged into this Twitter account earlier, and I went to James Lindsay's page just to see what he was tweeting about, just to see what insanity James Lindsay was tweeting about today. And I happened to discover James has this account blocked. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that funny? The Queer Marxism account never interacted with James. I never responded to James. I never shit-talked James. I never did nothing. But James proactively sought out the Queer Marxism account to block it because he is so afraid of looking at actual real world evidence that he just blocks it out of existence at the mere sight that he might have to contend with something that destroys his bullshit narratives. Now, I'm keeping a running tally on the Queer Marxism account of the so-called anti-woke influencers who have blocked the account. And there's actually 3 on the list. Actually, has Billboard Chris blocked this? I don't even know. Billboard Chris. Let's see if Billboard Chris has blocked it. I've never even interacted with him, but he might have. Let's just check. There he is. As a reminder, Billboard Chris is in the Sea Org in Scientology. He just pretends that he's not because he doesn't want people to know that. No, looks like I can still respond to Billboard Chris for the moment. Anyway, if we go back over to the Queer Marxism account, why is everything taking 5 years to load? Let me shut down my email. That might help. Okay, so I'm keeping a running tally of the so-called anti-woke influencers who blocked this account. You can find the post under the highlights tab. So I want to show you who's on the account, who has blocked the account so far. Of course, James. James has blocked the account. Tiffany Justice, the president of Moms for Liberty, is so concerned about gender influencing our children that the president of Moms for Liberty blocked the account because the president of Moms for Liberty misinformed the public about what this stuff means. And I replied to her with evidence. Here you can see, queer theory is about pedophilia. And I replied to Tiffany and I said, the goal of queer Marxism is to abolish capitalism, Tiffany, which they say explicitly in their documents when you bother to read them. They don't just say it once, they say it over and over and over again. And I linked her to real world evidence. And I think I was about as nice as can be expected, considering that Tiffany Justice is lying to people about what this is and misinforming millions of people because the only thing Tiffany Justice cares about is money and status and clout. And that is all Tiffany Justice has ever cared about. So she blocked the account for rightly informing her. And then, of course, we have Angela Vanderplume, the Jewess, the Zionist, who only cares about Israel, saying, I just can't be bothered to look at primary source evidence if you're involved. Okay. Fine, Jewess. Fine. So those are the 3 people that claim to be anti-woke but are really just clout-chasing whores who have blocked the Queer Marxism account so far. And while I do not intend for this account to be a drama account, I am actually incredibly serious about posting queer Marxist content. If you go onto the account, you're going to see that this is all related to queer Marxism. There's clips related to queer Marxism. There's pictures related to queer Marxism. There's all sorts of stuff. This is all good. This is not a drama account, but as you guys know, I do take it as a personal responsibility where if I see some influencers doing some shady shit and pretending they care about things that they obviously don't care about, I am going to call them out. And I think that people should be aware, because there are a lot of people that are not serious, that are pretending to be, to get famous on the internet, and it's bullshit. And I'm going to call it out if I see it. And I'm going to make an example of them, because they are no different than the left. They're actually worse than the left, because they want the left to win. They make more money and have more status if the left wins and they lose. And this is why they're doing what they're doing, because it's not about solving a problem. It's only about maintaining their image, darling, and their brand and their fundraising. And that's all they really care about. So if you want the real stuff, follow Queer Marxism on Twitter. And make sure you head over to my main Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. You will find a massive archive of information, receipts, videos, primary sources, breakdowns of what the left is doing in plain English so that you can understand them. We're doing a counter-revolutionary book club where we're going in and we're reading the documents. You can see them for yourself. There's a ton of stuff on the Substack, okay? And the only way that I can maintain this is through the help and support of people like you. If you're not a supporter on my Substack yet, please make sure you head over there. Sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I cannot do this without you guys. You are funding my ability to do this. We've got some really cool stuff coming, hopefully, fingers crossed, on Monday. I've got a complete rebrand I'm working on because the Better Discourse's name is going to be going away. The reason the Better Discourse's name is going to be going away is that it was always meant as a temporary gag on James Lindsay during the war with James Lindsay. And now I feel like I have won the war. I feel like I have come out on top. James is no longer talking about the left, which means he's no longer misinforming people about the left. And so we're now going to be transitioning into Carlin taking this shit a lot more seriously. I probably should have done this a while ago. But you know what? This is the process, and this is how it played out. And I feel like I had to defeat the adversary, and I've now defeated the adversary in order to step into what I need to be doing. And when you guys see it, you're going to understand. It brings everything together. Because right now I've got all of this stuff that seems like it's separate. No. It's not separate. It's just different components of a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is going to be coming out. And I'm finishing it up. And hopefully it gets finished up this weekend. And I think you guys are going to like it. And is going to dictate the entire direction moving forward. And I'm really excited about it, and I think you will be too. So if you want to be the first to know, you can sign up for email updates on my Substack. That is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. You can sign up for email updates for free, as always. But again, if you want to support me, $8 a month, $80 a year, I really would appreciate it. All right, guys, before we get into our show, we need to have beer. Am I going to change the handle? Yes, because I have a better handle. And you'll find out what that handle is soon. But it's going to be the same account. It's just going to be the same account. So we'll figure it out. I know it's a little bit of a branding inconsistency, but it's fine. It's fine. It is what it is. Anyway, can we talk about beer? Let's talk about beer. Yeah, I would not put that handle on any new stuff moving forward, but you don't have to go back and redo stuff or anything. Don't worry about it. Like, this stuff happens all the time, and it's gonna be better this way. It's gonna be better. It was a temporary thing. We had a lot of fun with it. Now we need to move on. Okay, let me get the beer. Hang on. As you guys know, we have a tradition on Fridays where I go to the craft beer store and I buy 4 beers. I do not drink all 4 beers, but they come in a 4-pack, a 4-ring. And so I feel obligated to buy 4 beers. And so you guys get to vote on which one I drink first. After I explain to you what they are, I will be putting a poll in the chat. Our first beer is going to be in honor of Jennifer. Jennifer this weekend is showing The Wizard of Oz in movie night. And Jennifer has been trying for 3 weeks to show The Wizard of Oz. Okay. And so, in honor and support of her, to manifest that we're going to watch the Wizard of Oz for movie night on Sunday in the Discord, I got a beer called Ruby Slippers. I was like, this is a sign. It's a sign from God. And this is a raspberry, sour ale. And it is about 5%. It doesn't say anything interesting. It's from Kittery, Maine. A Maine beer. What says German-style raspberry sour wheat beer better than a Cantor? Okay, so it's a German-style raspberry wheat beer. That is going to be our option number 1. Option number two. Did I get the fluffy one? No, I didn't. No, I didn't get the hazy IPA because I didn't want to admit to Adam Green if I liked it. That was if you follow my Twitter, you understand. But I did get a Night Switch Ale. Night Switch is a brewery out of Boston. They're actually pretty good. The thing about Night Switch is their logo is cool because, okay, so this is their logo, right? You can see it's an owl. If you turn it upside down, that's what hops looks like. So hops are one of the main ingredients of beer. And so their logo is versatile. It's hops when it's upside down, and it's an owl when it's right side up, which I think is kind of cool. Anyway, I like Night Shift Brewing. I think they do some good beer. I've never had their coffee porter before, and it's called Awake, so it has coffee in it. I think that's pretty much all we need to know about it. This is about 6%. Awake is brimming with rich roasted coffee. Hang on. Can't read. Rich roasted coffee aromas, invigorating flavors of baker's chocolate and mocha. So that is going to be our coffee porter. That's not the only coffee-related beer I got. I was in a coffee beer kind of mood. I'm a stout and porter girl, as you guys know. Stout and porters are my favorite. The next one we got was a triple omen. This is a triple espresso stout. So this is an imperial. Imperials tend to have more alcohol. I believe this one has 9%. Oh no, 12%. Oh, it's not 9, it's 12%. Triple espresso stout. This is from Progression Brewing Company in Northampton, Massachusetts. So it's going to be a socialist beer because Northampton, Massachusetts is very, very socialist. But, you know, we'll forgive them if they have good beer because, you know, that matters too. That is our third option. And then I was in the mood for a peanut butter beer. I love peanut butter beer. It's the best. But not all peanut butter beer is created equal. Some peanut butter beer is definitely better than others. Anyway, I found what I think is the only peanut butter beer in my craft beer store today. I've never had this one, though. It's from a brewing company. No, it's from Black Hog Brewing Company. They're in Connecticut. I've never had this brewery before. And it's called Choosy Moms. And this is an imperial stout with peanut butter. And if I had to state a preference, this would probably be my preference, but you guys can vote for whatever you want. And all I know about this is that it is a 10% alcohol beer. And it is an imperial peanut butter stout. That's it. There's nothing written on it. So these are our options for beer today. I am putting the poll in the chat on YouTube. Again, our choices are Ruby Slippers, which is a raspberry wheat beer. We've got Awake, which is a coffee porter. We have the triple espresso stout. And we have the peanut butter stout. Let me know which one you guys want me to drink first in the chat. Let us know if you're drinking something fun in the chat as well. And while you guys are doing that, I will get all set up here. Happy Friday to everyone. Happy Friday, guys. Happy Friday. Okay, let me just get my stage set up while you guys are voting. I think we're going to do the Revolutionary Communists of America tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. That is my current plan, anyhow. We haven't done the RCA in a while. Okay, let's see. Last chance to vote. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys picked the peanut butter stout. How considerate. How considerate of you to pick the beer I wanted you to pick. I really appreciate it. I got my big old wine glass here because I'm bougie and I drink beer out of a wine glass. Most of the time, a wine glass and or a snifter, depending on which glass is clean, mostly. Let's see. Cheers, everyone. I hope this beer is good. Peanut butter beer is so disappointing when it's bad. And it's called Choosy Moms, so I hope it has a good amount of peanut butter in it. The Teddy peanut butter beers are the ones that have been really good, but I haven't seen them around lately, so maybe they're all sold out. Cheers, everyone. I can definitely smell the peanut butter. I don't taste the peanut butter, though. It's so disappointing. I don't taste the peanut butter. It's a little bit alcohol-y, if I'm honest. Now, I'm going to drink it. Don't get it twisted. It's not a bad beer. I just was hoping for more peanut butter and less alcohol-y taste, but that's okay. It's still fine. It's still fine. It is still fine. It's still fine. It's still fine. You know, some experiments just don't work out the way you want them to. I'm not saying it's a bad beer. I'm just not saying it's great. It's like a 7. It's a 7 out of 10. All right, it's not like a 3. It's not bad. I just wanted more peanut butter. Why is this so difficult? Just make me a beer that tastes like a peanut butter milkshake. Am I asking too much? Am I really asking too much? Apparently so. All right, well, now that I have alcohol, I'm properly alcoholed. We are going to get into our show. We are watching Ginger Dragon, Sophie Lewis, our Abolish the Family Goddess. And this is a presentation that Sophie did a couple years ago for the Critical Midwifery Studies Collective. And I think that this is going to be a really entertaining day for us. So, guys, please mount the like button. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are not already. If you have questions about what the hell Sophie is talking about anytime during this presentation, you feel free to let us know. People who watch Sophie in the chat mostly understand her. But if you're new here, you might have questions. It's okay to ask questions because we are watching hardcore radical revolutionary socialism. And though we do have fun with it, we also do take it seriously. So let us know if we can help you understand this stuff. And let's get this party started. We might have to fast forward a little bit. Socialist technology. No, they're still getting ready.
So,
there's Sophie! Looking very pretty, Sophie.
hope you all had a good break. Had some lunch. Sophie, I'm not seeing your screen anymore.
Uh-oh.
But when you're ready, I think we are.
Oh, okay. Okay. My bad.
I'll do the introduction while you can set up the screen. So welcome back, everybody. Our next speaker is Sophie Lewis. And Sophie Lewis is the author of Full Surrogacy Now, Feminism Against Family and Abolish the Family, a manifesto for care and liberation. They studied English, bachelor and environment, a master's at Oxford Politics, and a politics master's at the New School, and geography, a PhD at Manchester. Lewis's theorizing and cultural criticism appears in venues ranging from N+1 and the LRB to feminist theory. A teaching faculty member at the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research and visiting scholar at the University of Pennsylvania's Center for Research on Feminist, Queer, and Transgender Studies. Sophie is nevertheless a freelance writer, dependent on public speaking and Patreon. And we're really, really happy to have you here today. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello from Lenapehoking, specifically West Philadelphia,
Land blessing!
where I've lived for 5 years now.
Okay, pop quiz. We haven't done this one in a while. Why are we doing a land blessing right now? Sophie lives in Philadelphia, but her first slide is about the Lenny Lape region that takes over West Philadelphia, apparently, because we can't say West Philadelphia. That's disrespectful. What is Sophie doing with the land blessing? Why are land blessings a thing? Land blessings have gone out of style in recent years, but they used to be in every single presentation. This is a presentation from 2022. Land blessings are an acknowledgement of the original caretakers of the land before the land was privatized under capitalism. So this is about the indigenous land. Remember, the goal of socialist communists is to abolish all private property ownership. They believe that indigenous land was taken and stolen by the evil colonists. That's what colonialism or colonization means. And it was privatized under capitalism to exclude other people from the land. Prior to it being privatized by the evil settler colonists, it was under the caretakership of the collective indigenous people. It is to acknowledge the theft of the collective property and the evil capitalists who privatized it. And also, it's kind of a mourning of that. It's a mourning of the death of the collective land.
It is almost 11 a.m. We are still sort of basking in the glow of the buck moon, the super moon, which rose on Wednesday and looked like this. And this kind of blood red ambience is very much the political mood for reproductive justice militants in this city, as you can imagine. It is an incredible privilege for me to be participating in this pantheon of decolonial, abolitionist, critical feminist, midwifery practitioners, and obstetric philosophers. So thank you for being here to hear me, a freelance writer who has done hard time in academia, but is now a sort of, independent, critical, utopian feminist theorist on the very final day of this, incredible conference. And thank you, obviously, to the organizers, especially the wonderful Rodante van der Waal, for the honor of the invitation. So my thoughts today are sort of both relatively new in the sense that I'm responding to recent political milestones as well as the inauguration of critical midwifery studies. And at
a comradely politics of gestational labor. How might we care for and against uterine work? Okay, Sophie.
At the same time, they are not new at all, in the sense that I sort of gestured towards them in my book, Full Surrogacy Now, which is about the sort of buried utopian relationalities harbored in pregnancy. And then I also just wanted to say, for transparency's sake, in the last 2 months, I've been publishing a lot, including some of the thoughts I want to share with you today. So you'll not be surprised to hear, given that the Supreme Court of the US leaked the draft of its opinion overturning Roe versus Wade the day after May Day this year. I have been publishing some of these thoughts on the freedom to withdraw from gestational labor, which is my preferred framing of abortion, which I'm keen to hear your thoughts on. And I'm trying to imagine the necessary frameworks for supporting gestators in and against capitalist gestation. So I'll try and unpack.
I am supporting gestators. That means pregnant women against capitalist gestation. Something like that. Let's listen again.
To withdraw from gestational labor, which is my preferred framing of abortion, which I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
Oh, I missed that. Sophie frames the idea of abortion as withdrawing from gestational labor. That means not having kids.
From gestational labor, which is my preferred framing of abortion, which I'm keen to hear your thoughts on. And I'm trying to imagine the necessary frameworks for supporting gestators in and against capitalist gestation. So I'll try.
Supporting gestators in and against capitalist gestation. I really hope Sophie gives us a clear definition about what she means by capitalist gestation.
Unpack that a little bit in the time we have today. I'm hoping to not, as I sometimes do in some forums, deliver a sort of long theoretical lecture, but rather to keep it as communicative and conversational as possible, and to indeed open it up to conversation sooner.
You know, Bod, this is a good question, actually. Are all women considered gestators or only women who have kids? I believe that it's only women who have kids, because the argument would be just because you can gestate doesn't mean you do gestate. And the other argument would be not all women can gestate, because Sophie believes that trans women are real women. And so Sophie would say not all women can gestate, but there are people who can gestate, because Sophie, actually gestators might not only be applied to women, because what Sophie would say is that men can have kids too. If men have a uterus, then men can have kids too. So actually when Sophie's saying gestators, they them probably means everyone who has children.
Rather than later. But yeah, sorry. So just to say, you know, some of these things you can sort of follow up on in written form at the Nation, Salvage Quarterly, and the LRB. I must confess, it's really exciting for me to be in this kind of forum, you know, full of gestational freedom fighters, and you know, it's challenging for that reason to rein myself in and not try to say everything. You know, there's so much that I would like to run by you, but
we have to read this at some point. Sophie is obsessed with octopuses. I actually know of this article, I just haven't read it. My octopus girlfriend on I don't even know, ertophobia. I don't know what that means, but we're going to check that out at some point.
I hope it's not a sort of self.
Look at this! The sheep in the bio bag. It's the bio bag.
Indulgence to have this kind of momentary preamble to help give you a sense of who I am. You know, it's basically my job as I conceive it, to challenge various kinds of anti-utopianism in cultural criticism. And yeah, I'm hoping that it perhaps helps you anchor me and see where I'm coming from, to gesture very briefly towards some of the past sort of interventions I've attempted. For example, poking around in the ectogenetic scientific research labs in my neighborhood to try and think about the partial automation of pregnancy on fetal sheep. And at this point, as I'm sure you all know, fetal human beings, or, you know, my thoughts about the politics of, you know, cervical holding and letting go that can be extrapolated.
As a reminder, we have Sophie on video talking about manufacturing children in bio bags the same way they were cloning sheep in those bio, and she says it explicitly. She calls for the manufacture of children in order to decouple reproductive labor from gender entirely. So basically growing babies outside the womb.
Very much beyond the literal uterus, into the domains of, you know, water justice, indigenous water protection, and decolonial sovereignty. So that's, some of the things that I'm coming from. And, I'm just hoping perhaps, there's an eventuality you've stumbled across some of these things before, and now you can connect them to me for the purposes of this conversation, or, if they pique your curiosity, you can Google them. So yeah, as I say, it's been about 5 years now that I've been a freelance writer trying to combat sort of the naturalization of various types of reproductive labor. And I've been trying with some success.
Sophie is a freelance writer trying to combat the naturalization of various types of reproductive labor. Listen to that again.
As I say, it's been about 5 years now that I've been a freelance writer trying to combat sort of the naturalization of various types of reproductive labor.
Combat the naturalization of various types of reproductive labor. Sophie is trying to get people to see having children as a burden, as something that inhibits a life in like a very real way. It's Sophie is making an anti-nature argument. She literally is. She's saying like, I don't want this to be naturalized because this is Sophie. Annie, welcome to Sophie. Welcome to Sophie. You got to bring your own beer. It's BYOB. Yeah, well, hopefully the placenta. I didn't put the placenta on the screen. Sophie did. It's science. We're doing science today.
And I've been trying with some success to tempt the left to help me, or better join me, in thinking with the co-productivity of gestational process, and trying to think the conditions of possibility for gestational decriminalization.
Why does this person have a penis? What the fuck am I looking at right now? You guys see that, right? That is a pregnant man. You got to give them credit for creating disturbing imagery. What does this say? In the week of International Women's Day and the women's strike, Sophie Lewis asks us to fight for more than just the right to safe work, but also the right to be lazy. Say it loud. We can affirm our non-desire to work even if we don't work hard, even when it comes to making babies. But this doesn't... Sophie, why the fuck am I looking at a pregnant person with a penis? Maybe she'll explain.
No! Which is, or gestational decrim.
There's just no explanation. That's actually probably the most Sophie thing that could happen. Just show a pregnant man with a penis on the screen and offer no explanation for what the holy fuck you're talking about.
The conditions of possibility for gestational decriminalization. Which is, or gestational decrim, which is an obvious analogy, well, I hope a comprehensible analogy to the sex worker liberation movement's theorization of the important difference between legalization and decriminalization. And above all, I'm trying to not let go of the specificity of the way that this particular labor, as Maggie Nelson puts it in the Argonauts, does us. This is the way that this labor does you. And so this is all, for me, part of a wider and perhaps kind of disorganized project of trying to de-romanticize the politics of care and attempting to illuminate the full complexity of what is known among unorthodox Marxists as anti-work. The
Cyborg Uterine Geography, Complicating Care and Social Reproduction. This is in a journal called Dialogues in Human Geography. Most geographers have sided with cyborgs, techno-natural subjects, against Goddess, Mother Earth, on questions of embodiment. In itself, this provides no justification for the relatively dearth in geography of theorizing with the uterus as a site of doing and undoing. What I propose to call uterine geography How have we never seen this before? Uterine geography. Uterine relations are fundamentally cyborg, animatedly laboring, and not only spartal, but spartalizing. They make and unmake places, borders, kin. This includes not only abortion, miscarriage, menstruation, and pregnancy, whose transcorporeal and chimeric character is well documented in medical anthropology, but also other life-enabling forms of holding and letting go that do not involve anatomical uteri, such as trans-mothering and other alter-familiar practices. Despite our discipline's ostensible interest in co-production, hybridity, and the more than human, the doing aspects of intra and interuterine processes have tended to be black-boxed in account of care economics and social reproduction. The proposed remedy is duromanticization, an approach that critically politicizes, oh my fucking Sophie, an approach that critically politicizes uterine relations as historically contingent and subjects to amoralization through struggle. Amelioration, not amelioration. Amelioration, sorry. Sophie's getting all the 50-cent words in. Potential aids include Maggie Nelson's idea that labor does you, Suzanne Saden's account of gestational mutual hostility, and the concepts of symposies or metamorphosis. One notable consequence of this expanded concept of uterine is that assisted reproduction, as it is characterized today, ceases to be categorically separate from other kinds of reproduction. What the fuck does this have to do with geography? Like, what am I even reading right now? What is this?
Work dimension in liberation politics.
Hang on, we got a super chat from Rottweiler. This is one of the few instances I would love seeing law enforcement going into these labs and making huge bonfires out of this BS, books included. Yeah, bonfires are necessary. Bonfires are necessary. Hey, guys, if you appreciate me showing you this on a Friday afternoon, how about we start a super chat fund? How about we start a Carlin beer fund? How about you help me maintain my sanity by buying me beer? Because we got a lot of presentation to get through. And if you want to support the work I'm doing and, keep me from going insane, please feel free to chip in $5, $10. I will break down this ideology. I will explain what it really means. Help me meet my super chat goal for today, because I feel like I'm actually going to need it. And I appreciate all of you. And I will show up for you if you show up for me. So let's get those super chats out, please. And thank you. Oh, Reagan already found it. Thank you, Reagan. Okay, good.
More on that in 1 second. I just want to note that it's been my incredible privilege to meet people who are, engaged in similar processes along the way. And I by no means think that that this is actually some kind of lonely project. By no means. In fact, it's been my privilege to meet people like Rodante, as an instructor at the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research, where I sort of make money as a freelance contractor trying to put together social theory courses on things like, the problematic fave, as I would call it, the dialectic of sex as a work of utopian, gestational communism, and the anti-work philosophy of the Marxist feminist Kathy Weeks. So in case people are unfamiliar with anti-work, I just want to quickly gloss my understanding of work.
Hey, Trendlin! Can't do much this month. Have to go to my grandma's ATPIDS in May for LNC. Oh, yeah. Well, I understand, Trendlin. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Oh, Mitchell, thank you for the beer fund money. I appreciate it.
Abolition, which is basically indebted to Weeks's theorization of feminist subject constitution, which is quite, well known in certain sort of milieus of the left, and at the same time, I think remains insufficiently
Grand Rapids,
kind of
that's where you're going.
And it's sort of, for me, the core point is that the refusal of work, especially in domains like reproduction and care. So this horizon of hope.
Actually, let's pause this. Let me make sure people understand this. Kathy Weeks is an anti-work activist. Anti-work is essentially the idea that we shouldn't have to work. I mean, it is exactly what it says it is. Communism wants to abolish all private property ownership. They believe that private property ownership is based on the idea of profit, of personal accumulation of private wealth. That all leads back to the economic structure of America, with which work, people working, going in and working for the evil capitalists, is something that the socialists believe is fundamentally oppressive. Now, socialists, because of social reproduction theory, believe that capitalism put women in the home where they were charged with doing the unpaid labor of having children. Socialists literally view having children, raising children, as a form of work, as a form of literal labor. So if we have an anti-work activist talking about social reproduction theory and the abolition of the family, what they are saying is women, people with uteruses, people who can gestate, however they want to put it, should be able to opt out of doing gestational labor, of doing unpaid gestational labor. This is why they support reproductive justice, which is their fancy name for abortion. Reproductive justice is the idea that you can have children or not, and you can choose to abort your children at any time, and they want all abortion to be free, unlimited, on demand, up to birth. And that's because it is an anti-work effort to undermine social reproduction theory through the nuclear family, because they are telling women that they can opt out of having the children that they become pregnant with by having irresponsible sex and all that stuff. Hey, Tolkien fan for the beer fund. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Work in this domain does not mean, some kind of disappearance or erasure. So this is very much an analogy with what, for example, prison abolitionists say about the prison industrial complex. Ruthie Wilson Gilmore, for example, is always saying this, that abolition doesn't mean an erasure or a deletion of infrastructure. It's not about disappearing things, making them vanish. It's on the contrary about building. And this is very much what Kathy Weeks, I think, is saying about the abolition of, in this case, work, especially in the domains of care and reproduction. It kind of sounds like perhaps she might be saying, get rid of relations, and it's very much the opposite of that, right? Abolition again, to quote Ruthie Wilson Gilmore, is this kind of building process of a world in which, prison is unthinkable, or perhaps.
Well, Michael says, dang, I thought anti-work just meant actual jobs, not baby making. It means both. And this is why it's important to understand how socialists define things, because if you don't understand that socialists define reproductive labor, having babies, as a literal form of unpaid labor that capitalism forces on women, then you might not understand that, yeah, having babies is considered to be a form of work, and that an anti-work philosophy would mean being able to opt out of having all babies, essentially, as a form of like a general strike.
For weeks, the nuclear family is unthinkable. So anti-work for care means, in the short term, right, if we're thinking about non-reformist reforms, transitional demands, interim processes, it would mean redistribution of labor burdens first and foremost, and only secondarily, perhaps, we don't know, potentially elements of partial automation, which I want to suggest we shouldn't be necessarily closed off to as an a priori, even though, as Shulam,
automation means having children outside the womb in biobags.
As Firestone very much said, any embrace of technology in the present is likely to be kind of disastrous, because those technologies are, under the control of capitalist patriarchs. So absent, an overwhelmingly powerful, revolution in social relations and relations of gender and colonialism, there can be no liberatory application of, automation or technology. That said,
so what Sophie just said there is, it's not realistic to think that we're going to be able to grow children outside the womb until we overthrow the capitalist structure, because right now the technology required to grow children in biobags outside of the womb is just not available to us because it's controlled by the evil capitalists. And so in order to get the ability to grow children outside the womb, we need to overthrow capitalism so we can seize all the technology and use it for ourselves.
It's quite different to say that, and to say that there can be no role for technology in our gestational liberation horizon. And I think it's really important to understand that much of what passes as tech fixes, and much of what passes as automation in the present, is really only outsourcing, right? It's only labor outsourcing, a racial labor conjuring trick, which is the main point, as I take it from the book Surrogate Humanity. I don't actually have that on a slide, but Surrogate Humanity by Karlin Dvora and Neda Atanasovsky makes this point. So the reason why I feel...
No. Annie, you're not getting it. Annie. They want to de-gender having children entirely. This is not about men or women. This is not a solution to the problem. This is not related. They want to grow children in biobags or pods outside of the womb in order to make it possible, in order to basically just completely decouple gender from giving birth. Giving birth would no longer be about a woman giving birth. It would be a process that takes place in a lab. Men have nothing to do with it. Women have nothing to do with it. It's a bigger picture.
It is important for me to sort of dwell on this, and why I feel it is important for us to say caring for and against uterine work is precisely this kind of anti-work.
Do I think any political figures know about this? No, they don't fucking listen. I've tried to tell them. They don't listen.
Dimension in liberation history, which sometimes gets lost, right, in the sort of more mainstream forms of socialism, which forget that the task of the struggle of the working class is to self-abolish rather than to, erect the working class as the, as the boss on top or whatever. So my conviction is that our oppression in a work society, which is to say capitalism, extends right to our psychical romanticizations of unpaid and especially reproductive work. So you can see why this, now perhaps might influence the sorts of practices that support the co-productivities of pregnant persons, the professional and unprofessional labors that help midwife that work. What kind of attitude does one take towards work is a question that perhaps needs to be dwelt on as an a priori, even if you think, and it's a perfectly sort of reasonable assumption, that this is one kind of work that cannot ever go away, right? Because the reproduction of the species, the continuity of history depends on it. And we can talk about that for sure in Q&A, the extent to which we want to naturalize gestational labor as a sort of transhistoric given. But yeah, so basically my central plea or thought for today is for an anti-work sensibility in critical midwifery studies, because, and this is maybe the simplest rationale for that, right? The most simple, and I've been saying this for years and I don't know how it will strike this particular audience, but the simplest reason why you would say that is simply the casualty rate of this particular workplace, right? Pregnancy kills 300,000 people a year. And I always just ask people to imagine if any other sector on earth of productive labor or activity had that kind of death rate, would it be remotely decent or thinkable to simply expect that process, that activity to continue? So I have been delighted to hear the powerful calls in this conference, with which I completely agree and with whom I wholeheartedly stand, for relational and trans-inclusive, decolonized and anti-racist approaches to doula practice and theory. I just want to add that for me, an inextricable, but sometimes not spelled out component of that sort of liberatory arsenal of sort of concepts is the imperative to support the refusal of forced work. Indeed, the refusal of work for any reason and none, whether it's forced or not. The freedom to exit pregnancy at any point, and the de-romanticization of gestational labor. So that's what I want to add to the sort of arsenal of challenges that I feel like we have gathered here this week. Challenges to the implicit theories and sometimes quite bioconservative ideologies that shape midwifery scholarship, right? And of course, it's not hard to understand why this dimension doesn't frequently get applied to the domain, of maternity. That's because in the domain of pregnancy, anti-work is necessarily something quite necropolitical. So I have two little artifacts. Sorry, by necropolitical, I mean, in intimate contact with the unmaking of life.
So death.
So I have two little artifacts for us to look at in terms of inspiration for a comradely politics of anti-work gestation. And one of them is from 1971, and the other one is from 2022. They don't necessarily say what I'm saying here in so many words, but I think, and perhaps you'll disagree with me, I think they resonate. I think they resonate. So the first one from 1971 is by Marianne Weathers, writing in the Liberation Movement magazine, The Second Wave. And she simply rights. This probably won't strike some of you as so very radical, and I'm conscious that I'm perhaps espousing that kind of, US-centric worldview, but, the simple point here, right? To force someone to, gestate against their will is nothing short, of barbaric. It's kind of what I said in my piece the other week, to expect anyone in our species to perform this kind of labor involuntarily is an atrocity. I would love it if critical midwifery, was able to fully support wanted gestations with the same sort of full-throatedness as it insists that this process, should be, runawayable from, exitable from, for any reason and none, because of the extreme sort of gruesomeness of its biology, right? The injuriousness, the fatality, and so on.
Oh, it's much better.
And I don't think that is remotely an anti-pregnancy position. On the contrary, I think it is a way to give gestating the respect that it deserves. Okay, my other little artifact is a quote that my friend Lucas Hermsmeyer gathered, and I have permission from him to use it, from Rocky Gonzalez of the
Bro. You can't expose this through a billboard because people need to see it. Unless you see people saying it, it doesn't register for people. I know, I've been trying to expose this stuff for years. No, what we need to do, Michael, is that we need to build a community of grassroots people who actually care about this stuff. We need to talk to people one-on-one. You guys, the job that you guys have, bring more people to watch this content. Here's the deal I'm going to make with people. I am transitioning into a phase in my content where I'm going to be taking this much more seriously than I've taken it before. And you guys know that I've actually taken this pretty seriously. I've taken this seriously on a level of 7 out of 10, which I think is pretty good considering the amount of bullshit I've had to put up with on the internet. But we're amping it up a little bit. And so here is the commitment that I'm going to make to you guys. If you go and find your friends and bring them to watch this content, because you're going to be like, bro, this is the craziest shit you've ever seen. You have no idea what's going on. No one else is talking about this. You got to really play it up. If you guys do that, then I will be nicer to new people. I will not yell at new people. I will not instantly ban new people if they make a mistake. I'm really trying to be nicer, okay? And you guys know that as an Aries woman, this pains me to no end, but I'm doing my part. I am providing an educational opportunity. I've got a lot of stuff that's going to be launching that is going to give people the opportunity to show up. My job in this is I show up and I tell you what's going on and I show you the evidence, and I do it in a fun way that people can engage with, that makes it a little bit less of a burden, because we do have fun with it. We do satire around it, stuff like that. But if I'm going to be nice to people on the internet, then I need you guys to go out and get your friends and force them to come and join us. And they need to go get their friends, and we need to build a grassroots movement of people that talk about this stuff. If we can build a grassroots movement of people that talk about this stuff, eventually enough people are going to talk about it that the politicians are going to have to start listening. That is the only way we get people to listen, is if we build a grassroots, a real grassroots movement of people, not any of this fake AstroTurf bullshit. If we can do that, and we can work together to do that, then we can get people to listen. But not before. They haven't had enough. They have no reason to listen. It doesn't benefit them to listen. But if they have people in their ear saying, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this, listen, this is real, and we have more people, there are more people that are coming around to this stuff all the time. So we don't buy billboards. Exactly. If you wanted to, like, bribe your friend to come and watch the content, that's a much better use of that money. Gift people a subscription to my Substack. That's a great use of money. Like, get them to actually engage with it. That's what we need to be doing. Also, super chats. If you guys want to send in super chats to support the work I'm doing, that'd be pretty great. I appreciate it.
The La Frontera Fund in the Rio Grande Valley, which she gave to Lucas, I think 3 weeks ago. So this is extremely recent. And Rocky says that as someone with a uterus, it is their matriarchal right to form the world and to decide what ancestors will come through me at what point in time, right?
Appreciate you.
Because they have the power and the privilege of a creator. It's part of their role to form their community in the world in the way that works best for them. And there are ceremonies and prayers and processes that allow them to say, when I choose to have an abortion, you know, thank you for choosing me, and now is not the right time. So they're talking to the fetus there, right? I'm sending you back to the stars for now. You'll be okay. Go be in peace. There'll be another moment for you, and that's okay. And I've sort of, I just want to underline that when they say to the fetus, there'll be another moment for you, this is not to say that they themselves will provide that opportunity, that doorway into life, right? Sometimes in reproductive rights discourse.
Wait. Are they saying that when you have an abortion, you need to tell the baby that you're aborting that you might have another opportunity at life, but maybe with me, maybe not with me? An Indigenous full spectrum doula. Our midwives and our practices and our ceremonies have held it in a special way for a really long time. It has been ceremonial. It has been cared for by elders and by medicine people for a long time. We come from the 7 sisters. Oh my God, the 7 fucking sisters. And as someone with a uterus, it's like my matriarchal right to form the world and to decide what ancestors will come through me at what point in time, because I have the power and the privilege of a creator. It's part of my role to form my community in the world in a way that works best for me, and that there are ceremonies and prayers and processes that allow me to say, you know, when I choose to have an abortion, that you know, thank you for choosing me, and now is not the right time. Oh my God. This person is literally saying that if you have an abortion, just tell the fetus that you're aborting, thank you for choosing me, and now is not the right time, so I'm sending you back to the stars for now. You'll be okay. Go be in peace, and there'll be another moment for you, and that is okay. That is the agreement that we have. And Sophie is making it very clear that just because you're telling the aborted fetus that they're going to have another moment at life, that doesn't mean with you necessarily. It could be with someone else, you know. It's just like they say they still might not choose to... What the fuck? Listen, man, I've never had an abortion. I generally think that abortion should be, like, I'm really old-fashioned about this, safe, legal, and rare. I think I'm pro-choice, but, like, not that pro-choice. But, like, if I ever did, and I don't think I ever would have an abortion, but if I ever did, I certainly wouldn't have a conversation with the fetus I'm aborting to say, thank you for choosing me, but just now it's just not a good time. And, you know, I'm sending you back to the stars, and you're gonna get born to someone else now. Like, that's a fucked idea. Are you shitting me? This shouldn't be a ceremony of positivity. Abortion is a sad thing. Let's listen to Sophie explain this again, because obviously I was not paying close enough attention. Obviously I was not paying close enough attention. Okay.
Is a quote that my friend Lucas Hermsmeyer gathered, and I have permission from him to use it, from Rocky Gonzalez of the La Frontera Fund in the Rio Grande Valley, which she gave to Lucas, I think.
No, Trendolin, sadly, I am not yet too old for a baby. Sadly, I am still very fertile. For the moment. Anyway, not that it's any of your business, Trendolin.
3 weeks ago. So this is extremely recent. And Rocky says that as someone with a uterus, it is their matriarchal right to form the world and to decide what ancestors will come through me at what point in time, right? Because they have the power and the privilege of a creator. It's part of their role to form their community in the world in the way that works best for them. And there are ceremonies and prayers and processes that...
Alex! Oh no! Alex, you ruined it!
Information
You
who is
ruined
that
it.
technology.
What the fuck?
So I was
What the
wondering
fuck?
if you could
Where were we?
sort
What
of
just happened?
share your thoughts on...
Can someone rewind and tell me where we left off on? Because obviously I hit the wrong button when I was refreshing. I hit the wrong button. Can someone tell me the timestamp? Thank you, Alex! Alex is now making me do math. For reasons past my understanding, I have to do math now. I think it's 37. No, it's actually more than that. Shit. 47. Okay, can someone tell me the timestamp that I left off on? Because okay, 24:11. Thank you, bot. Thank you. I appreciate it. My bad. I hit the wrong button. Okay, we're going back. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. I am a professional, as you know.
You know, thank you for choosing me, and now is not the right time. So they're talking to the fetus there, right? I'm sending you back.
We need to go back a little bit. Oh, we need to listen to this again. I'm sorry.
Right? Because they have the power and the privilege of a creator. It's part of their role to form their community in the world in the way that works best for them. And there are ceremonies and prayers and processes that allow them to say, when I choose to have an abortion, you know, thank you for choosing me, and now is not the right time. So they're talking to the fetus there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, Sophie.
I'm sending you back to the stars for now. You'll be okay.
Yep.
Go be in peace. There'll be another moment for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And I've sort of, I just want to underline that when they say to the fetus, there'll be another moment for you, this is not to say that they themselves will provide that opportunity, that doorway into life, right? Sometimes in reproductive rights discourse, there's a big insistence on, you know, the gestator being willing to be a mother at some point, it just not being the right time right now. And it, you know, the politics of reproductive, you know, rights often, you know, stops short of supporting the desire to never, you know, to never gestate to term. And I noticed that that's not part of this, right? There'll be another moment for this fetus, but not necessarily in that uterus, right? So these are the two artifacts that I wanted to share as part of my invitation to, you know, to espouse this.
There'll be another chance at life for that aborted fetus, but perhaps not in the same uterus. Holy Sophie, do you even hear yourself? Do you even hear yourself? Seriously.
Anti-work comradeliness around gestational labor. And so just in, you know, basically in closing, we're rather opening up the conversation. I want to just kind of spell out some of the assumptions.
It's like Rosie the Riveter,
that I'm working with here. You know, the piece that has the title "Abortion Involves Killing and That's Okay" at the Nation that I published a month ago.
What?
I didn't choose that title.
Sophie published an article called Abortion Involves Killing and That's Okay. Can someone find that article? Abortion Involves Killing and That's Okay. It's going to be from 2022 by Sophie Lewis.
As the title, Abortion Involves Killing and That's Okay, at the Nation that I published a month ago. I didn't choose that title, but you'll be unsurprised to hear that the New York Times was not willing to publish that, even though it was actually developed as a piece with an editor at the New York Times.
Mizakan got it first. Mizakan beat Bott and Reagan. It's all over for Bott and Reagan. Mizakan got it first. Mizakan needs an official title in the community. So Bott is the chief investigative officer in the community. Reagan is the chief organizational officer in the meeting in the community. Mizakan should be the chief educational officer. The academic dean. I kind of like that, actually, the academic dean. Mizakan can be the academic dean because he reads all the books and does summaries for us. Mizakan, which do you prefer? Do you prefer chief educational officer or do you prefer the academic dean? Let us know. Wow. Check this out. Look at this. You want to be the academic dick? Okay, you can be the academic dick if you want to be that. It's important to have dreams. It's important to have dreams. Yeah, Trendlin, you're the chief troublemaker. That's true. That's actually very true. Okay, check this out. Look at this. In the Nation, in June of 2022, by Sophie Lewis. Abortion involves killing, and that's okay. Can we get this? Can I get this read? Can this just read this for me? Hang on. Can you just read this? Not that. This. Can you just read this for me? Natural reader, can you just read this for me? Please. That'd be so great if it could just read it for me.
Abortion involves killing, and that's okay. To be pro-choice is to be against forced life. In 2019, I published a kind of manifesto full surrogacy, now whose opening line is, "It is a wonder we let fetuses inside us." The opening pages are entirely given over to my extended paean to the process of gestating in all its shockingly grisly biology, its everyday sublimity. Whereas, in other species, a female can often discard or expel a pregnancy at will. In our species, a hyperinvasive placenta puts the gestator at risk of lethal hemorrhage.
Oh my God, Sophie.
Locked down, our body becomes a daredevil participant in a wrestling match or similar extreme sport. We cannot easily quit. From this starting point, I make a case for rethinking human gestation as real and currently often deadly dangerous labor, deserving of maximal support. The controversial part is that a key correlate of viewing gestating as labor is that forcing someone to gestate against their will is forced labor.
So,
Furthermore,
hang on. I want to make sure people understand this. So Sophie just said in this article, the controversial part is that a key correlate of viewing gestating as labor is that forcing someone to gestate against their will is forced labor. Sophie is literally saying that forcing women to have a baby without giving them the option of abortion is slavery. Everyone understand that?
Furthermore, if the labor of pregnancy is productive of life, then interrupting that labor is logically speaking productive of death. Rather than shy away from this, I believe we should embrace it as part of an effort to give gestating the respect it deserves. In the intervening years since publishing my book, I have received dozens of reports of women who experience the ideas in it as deeply salutary during pregnancy. Strangers have sent me photos of full surrogacy now lying face down in maternity wards. By the same token, I had drawn on heterodox pregnancy memoirs to bolster my claims. Never in my life have I felt more pro-choice than when I was pregnant, Maggie Nelson had written in the Argonauts in 2015. And never in my life have I understood more thoroughly and been more excited about a life that began at conception. Feminists may never make a bumper sticker that says it's a choice and a child, but of course that's what it is, and we know it. We're not idiots. We understand the stakes. Sometimes we choose death. Harry and I sometimes joke that women should get way beyond 20 weeks, maybe even up to 2 days after birth to decide if they want to keep the baby. Joke okay. I agree with Nelson. There's something infantilizing about denying the fact that embryos die when we scrape them out of the bodies of which they are a part. It sentimentalizes pregnant or potentially pregnant humans as fundamentally nonviolent creatures to imply that we can't handle the truth about what we are up to when we opt out.
Yo, they are literally admitting! They're literally admitting that they know they're killing babies when they have an abortion.
It sentimentalizes pregnant or potentially pregnant humans as fundamentally nonviolent creatures to imply that we can't handle the truth about what we are up to when we opt out. And it patronizes abortion getters to insist that we are only making a healthcare choice, rather than also extinguishing a future child.
Oh my God. Sophie literally said that abortion is extinguishing a future child.
In my view, recognizing that gestating manufactures a proto-person requires acknowledging that abortion kills a proto-person.
A proto-person.
A baby is completely dependent on human care in order to stay alive, but its needs could be filled by any person, whereas a fetus, a proto-person, is ineluctably dependent on specific person. We humans do kill, when necessary. Victims of assault sometimes kill in self-defense. Targets of persecution sometimes kill for justice or just to reduce the number of their persecutors, and the colonized sometimes kill for liberation. Mothers living in unspeakable conditions, including chattel slavery, have been documented to kill their children as an act of mercy.
Come on, Sophie! You're literally saying that having an abortion is an act of mercy on the child because it's an anti-work statement to have an abortion in the first place? Come on.
Of course, these examples are instances of necessary violence, generated by the conditions for which we struggle to render extinct. When it comes to abortions, it seems possible that the conditions that necessitate them may never be wholly eliminated, even if vasectomies become generalized and perfected ectogenetic technologies become universally accessible. As long as people are performing pregnancy on this earth, they must be free to change their minds about seeing it through. The adoption industry could be revolutionized and child welfare lavishly subsidized. Regardless of the available supports, no one should be pregnant involuntarily. The science of medicine dictates that when foreign organisms inhabit the human body unwelcomely, we tend to eject them.
That's how Sophie frames pregnancy. When foreign organisms inhabit the human body unwelcomely, we eject them. Okay, Sophie, that's very nice. Andre, thank you for the super chat. At this point, I'm surprised the Terminator hasn't extinguished humanity yet. Yeah, it's going to at some point. Yeah, we're all left. Yeah, we are. Thank you for the super chat.
When a beloved non-human member of the family is sick and elderly, many pet owners decide not to pay for medical care and opt for euthanasia instead. It is a mark of moral seriousness to acknowledge what it is that we're doing when we butcher a cow, put a pet to sleep, or for that matter, euthanize a human relative.
Wait. Sophie is saying that because we put pets to sleep when they're old and sick, that's the same as having an abortion? No, Sophie. No. It is not the same thing. That is a really bad example. It is not the same thing. Putting an old, sick pet to sleep is an act of mercy, and a pet is not a human being. It is a bundle of love that will love you forever and unconditionally, and it is beautiful, and we respect them, and we love them, and we cry very much when they go to sleep. But It's not the same thing as having an abortion. You want to know why? Because the pet had a full life in which it received a ton of love from its owners, and the fact that its owners are taking care of it in its time of need shows how much the owners love them. It is not the same thing as having a fucking abortion. Come on.
According to the philosopher of science Donna Haraway, we must stay with the trouble of the violence we inevitably mete out in our everyday traffic with forms of life, be it at the dinner table, the battlefield, or in the scientific laboratory. Rather than squaring our acts of killing away according to a moral calculus, or pretending that we aren't really killing, multi-species feminists should subscribe, suggests Haraway, to the ethical imperative, thou shalt not make killable. This might seem counterintuitive in the context of an argument in favor of abortion as killing, but the distinction between making fetuses killable and making it easy and stigma-free for people to take the decision to kill a fetus is significant.
Wait, what? I cannot even believe this is a real sentence that I'm reading right now. This might seem to be counterintuitive in a context of an argument in favor of abortion as killing, but the distinction between making fetuses killable and making it easy and stigma-free for people to take the decision to kill a fetus is significant. These people make me want to be pro-life. And, like, I actually do legitimately believe in a woman's right to choose. I was raped when I was younger. I would never want to have that choice taken away from me. I never want that choice taken away from other women. I don't believe it's enough to say that you should only be able to have an abortion in cases of rape, because then I think men are going to get accused of raping women when they didn't with more frequency, and I don't think that's okay either. I am very, very pro-choice with sensible, reasonable limits. I think abortion should be a sad thing. I don't think it should be an easy decision. I don't think people should be shouting their abortions. I don't think that's good. I personally would probably never have an abortion, but it is not the pro-life Republicans and conservatives that make me pro-life. I actually hate the pro-life Republicans and conservatives. I find them to be insufferable. I find them to be ridiculous. I find them to be just as nonsensical as the left. It is actually the reproductive justice advocates that make me more pro-life, because when I read things like, this might seem counterintuitive in an argument in favor of abortion is killing, but the distinction between making fetuses killable and making it easy and stigma-free for people to take the decision to kill a fetus is significant. When I read that these women are hyper-aware that they are actually killing a living thing with an abortion, and they still shout it and celebrate it as though it's like a good thing that they should be really fucking proud of. Nah, bitch, nah. You had irresponsible sex. You didn't use a condom. You didn't use birth control. You didn't use the morning after pill. You didn't even use the fucking pull-out method. You had irresponsible sex. You got pregnant when you didn't want it to, and now you're taking care of the situation. We all know why you're fucking doing this. And the fact that they're admitting flat out, yeah, we know we're killing something, but bro, we just weren't ready yet, then you shouldn't have fucked around in the first place. It is easy to have a lot of sex and not get pregnant. I had a lot of sex in my 20s. And I don't regret any of it because it was awesome. Okay, maybe a couple of times, like, it could have been better. But, like, I don't fucking regret any of it. But my point is that I never got pregnant because I wasn't stupid. Where's my sound reader? Where'd it go?
This might seem counterintuitive in the context of an argument in favor of abortion as killing, but the distinction between making fetuses killable and making it easy and stigma-free for people to take the decision to kill a fetus is significant. The former refers to casting something, a lab rat, for example, out of the sphere of the grievable, thanks to a tidy and final verdict on the permissibility of systematically sacrificing its life to a greater cause. The latter, while expanding access to the means of feticide, does not necessarily require any such sanitization of violence.
Sophie is literally calling abortion feticide. Wow.
For millennia, those of us who have helped a friend terminate a pregnancy, be it with herbal abortifacients, progesterone blockers, and ulcer tablets, or vacuum extraction devices, are well situated to understand that something is killed during a uterine evacuation, much as a flower dies when it is plucked. But what's the point of acknowledging this now, at a time when abortion rights are so imperiled? For one thing, it would seem hard to deny that the euphemistic, apologetic, placatory pro-choice strategy hasn't worked out thus far. So, why not risk coming out for what we actually want, namely, abortion, a clearly documented public good? The pending Supreme Court leak thrusts us into a situation in which we have little left to lose. Rather than cleave in desperation to the rearguard missions of defending the rights to privacy rather than abortion, enshrined in Roe v. Wade, we could consider this moment a chance to reset the terms on which abortion is fought. What would it mean to acknowledge that a death is involved in an abortion? Above all, it would allow for a fairer fight against the proponents of forced gestating. When pro-life forces agitate against feticide on the basis that it is killing, pro-abortion feminists should be able to acknowledge, without shame, that yes, of course it is.
Are you shitting me? How have we not seen this article before? Are you shitting me, Sophie? What would it mean to acknowledge that a death is involved in an abortion? Above all, it would allow for a fairer fight against the proponents of forced gestating. When pro-life forces agitate against feticide on the basis that it is killing, pro-abortion feminists should be able to acknowledge without shame that yes, of course it is. This article is wild. I told you that Sophie, during her green wall period, or blue wall period, Sophie said the craziest stuff during this period of her life, and now I think she's learned to temper it back. But this is what Sophie really thinks. Again, play.
When pro-life forces agitate against feticide on the basis that it is killing, pro-abortion feminists should be able to acknowledge, without shame, that yes, of course it is. When we withdraw from gestating, we stop the life of the product of our gestational labor.
Wow.
And it's a good thing we do, too, for otherwise the world would sag under the weight of forced life. It is a hard pill to swallow for a misogynist society sentimentally attached to its ideology of patriarchal motherhood. But the truth is that gestators should get to decide which bodies to give form to.
Wow.
This choosing is our prerogative. A desire not to be pregnant is sufficient reason in and of itself to terminate a gestatee.
Let's rephrase this. A desire not to be pregnant is sufficient reason in and of itself to terminate a baby.
A desire not to be pregnant is sufficient reason in and of itself to terminate a gestatee. When we force anti-abortionists to disagree explicitly with this, we bring their logic of female subordination into the open. Those with uteruses must serve patiently as the vessels through which life passes. We lay bare the calculus at the heart of their worldview, which they only sometimes spell out in so many words, as does the Mississippi pro-life leader Barbara Beaver. Mothers should die for their babies, not the other way around. Women are human, and as such can never be as innocent as the unborn. But innocence, as we see every time a police victim is described as no angel by the press, is a fundamentally inhumane category in politics, deriving from the most punitive interpretations of Christianity. According to this imaginary, non-innocence is the core characteristic of everything fallen, which is to say, everything that has ever lived. That's why the ghoulish Nataleism of those lobbying to give embryos the rights of patients and persons in law is, in the end, an anti-life position. It cares solely for the quantitative rather than qualitative dimensions of life, chasing life in the abstract and missing everything that matters about life as it is actually lived, life in particular. Fetishizing newness and sentimentalizing helplessness, pro-lifers pit themselves ruthlessly against the overwhelming majority of human life in particular. In their minds, fetuses deserve every protection, while we actually existing human beings belong to a completely different species. We are on our own, self-responsible, fatally compromised because enfleshed. Anti-abortionists routinely sacrifice the health and happiness of actual persons in defense of the forced survival of potential ones. It is high time we went on the offensive against their sickening, sacrificial version of vitalism. Ours is the mature pro-life politics. I don't want to live in a world that valorizes life for its own sake. I want to live in a world that prioritizes the life chosen and wanted. People's lives are worth more than fetuses' lives.
Wow, Sophie? The article we just listened to was published in The Nation in June of 2022, and the title is Abortion Involves Killing and That's Okay. To be pro-choice is to be against forced life. All right, I told you that we were going to get some golden nuggets today, and I feel like I've come through on my promise to send you some golden nuggets from Sophie today, because it was the blue wall period or the green wall period. I'm really not sure which I said the first time, but it's one of those two. And Sophie always said crazy stuff during the blue-green wall period. If you want to support the work I'm doing, please feel free to send in a super chat. We have a $100 goal today. No one else on the internet is showing you this stuff. No one else on the internet even knows this exists. This presentation had 16 views before I showed it to you, and now it has hundreds of views, which is better than the 16 that it had beforehand. And so if you appreciate that I dig up shit on the internet that no one else finds, please feel free to show your appreciation by sending in a super chat, helping me get to my $100 goal today. If we do this every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We do Saturdays at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. Come back to the channel another time. I'll show you stuff that you will not believe. And we will continue now.
It's ironic because I'm actually not interested in the idea that abortion is okay, right? I'm actually a lot less interested in bioethics than I am in politics. And my specific point, which is a bit of an irony given the choice of title, is that I'm not even interested or sure about saying that abortion is okay. I'm interested and committed to saying that it is good. And I think the question of, things being okay is a sort of deeply anti-political kind of bioethical question. And I'm informed by Donna Haraway in this kind of line of thinking, right? Staying with the trouble is precisely, as I understand it, about refusing to square things away as okay.
Hey, thanks, Andre. Appreciate it.
So my reasoning, by the way, this is a painting by Paula Rego, with which you may be familiar, Portuguese painter whose abortion series is thought to have influenced for the good,
series.
a referendum on abortion in Portugal just a few years
Hey,
ago.
Benjamin Jackson, thank you.
If the labor
Appreciate you,
of
Benjamin
pregnancy
Jackson.
is productive of life, and I am not saying a life, I'm not interested in this bioethical concept. I remember Amrita Banerjee talking about an ontology of entities. I'm completely in agreement with that. And I use the same framework. I'm not interested in an ontology of life entities. I'm using life in a capacious relational sense here. If the labor of pregnancy is productive of life, then interrupting that labor is, logically speaking, interruptive of life, i.e. productive of death. And I think that in this moment where I live right now on this territory, I'm
Annie,
really
thank you,
no
Annie.
longer, willing to shy away from
Appreciate
this.
you.
And I believe that we, and perhaps my comrades in the doula industry or non-industry, should embrace that point more explicitly when appropriate. when as part of an effort,
Nice.
as I said before, to give gestating the respect that it deserves and so sorely lacks in contemporary capital P politics.
She does, doesn't she?
So
Thank you.
in the intervening years since publishing Full Surrogacy Now, I just want to say, you know, I've received an absolutely astonishing and unexpected amount of reports, photos, messages from people who experienced the ideas in that book as deeply salutary during pregnancy. You know, so people send me pictures of Full Surrogacy Now on maternity wards, you know, and so I you know, I suppose I'm just mentioning that to evoke the perhaps surprising, you know, perhaps counterintuitive or not expected level of you know, necropolitical sensibility among people in the act of producing life, right? But perhaps it doesn't surprise you at all. After all, Maggie Nelson said, "Never in my life have I felt more pro-choice than when I was pregnant," right? Quote, "and never in my life have I understood more thoroughly and been more excited about a life that begins at conception." So this is this kind of, you know, provocation that Nelson makes that in her view, you know, life, not a life, but life, human flesh, living human animality begins at conception, right? That's something that she felt as a gestator. And at the same time, never did she feel more convinced of the necessity, you know, of the freedom to terminate that life. Quote, "Feminists may never make a bumper sticker saying it's a choice and a child, choice and a child. But of course, that's what it is, and we know it. We're not idiots. We understand the stakes.
Wow.
Sometimes we choose death."
They choose death. Wow.
I am coming up to half an hour, and that's good because you know, I've basically made the points that I really wanted to push across. If you are interested in some of the other theoretic kind of plinths or inspirations in my journey, you may have already intuited, those of you familiar with this history, that I am in a sort of critical, passionate dialogue with the 1970s Wages for Housework Committee, especially those dimensions that were involved in demanding wages due lesbians and Black women for wages for housework, which was a campaign in close collaboration with the National Welfare Rights Organization in the US, which in my view can be called a sort of anti-work family abolitionist organization, in the sense that many of its practitioners were not interested in making claims for money and time because of their status as mothers and as respectable reproducers, but on the contrary, simply because they wanted it, right? They made claims based on desire. Instead of saying, you know, we deserve money and time from the state because, you know, of our maternity and its morality, the morality of the work that mothers do. Many of the people in this moment, Black women for wages for housework, especially wages for housework more generally, and the National Women's Welfare Rights Organization, we're involved in sort of saying, fuck you, pay me, fuck you, pay us. Because the workplace is not something to be redeemed, but to be struggled in and against. So you see this highlighted line from the original text by Silvia Federici clarifying what it actually means to pit wages impossibly against housework, right? It's not an actual demand for wages. It's a utopian weapon against housework and against all work, you know, against the wage relation. She says here, every miscarriage is a work accident. You know, it's not to sort of sound overly grand, but I think I'm one of the few people hanging on to that line, which they kind of disavowed, right? They don't really talk about that anymore. Silvia Federici has quite changed her perspective, on gestational labor. But in this moment in 1972, she was writing "Every miscarriage is a work accident," and I'm trying to take that seriously and think through what it actually means, right? And when I first tried to do this in Full Surrogacy Now, I'll just run through the main points.
Hang on. Real quick, I need to go to the little socialist room. I will be right back. I'm going to let the video play. Take good notes. Let me know what I miss. I'll be right back.
Then I'll open up the conversation. My arguments are that all reproduction is assisted, right? Not just the sector of reproduction that is called, assisted and is called technology, assisted reproductive technology. But that's not something that, has any purchase in and of itself, just by saying that, the current dispensation of reproductive assistance is very dystopian, right? It's extremely asymmetric. That's the dystopian valence of the phrase full surrogacy. It's basically what Shelley Collins said when she said reproductive stratification, right? There is assistance happening, but it's all one directional, right? It's neo-colonial and it's classed. We don't want that kind of assistance, right? It's not radical in and of itself to say all reproduction is assisted. Although I have proposed this, but the point is to learn to act like it, and that would be the utopian valence of the phrase full surrogacy as a prescriptive rather than a descriptive intervention. Secondly, Full Surrogacy Now is inspired by a point that was very dear to radical movements such as the Gay and Lesbian Third World Women's Alliance in the long 60s. The children do not belong to their, fantasized authors, right? Children come.
I made it back just in time. Sophie is talking about how parental rights don't really exist and children don't actually belong to their parents. Okay, perfect timing.
The Gay and Lesbian Third World Women's Alliance in the long 60s. The children do not belong to their, fantasized authors, right? Children come into the world as strangers.
So let's look at what this says. All reproduction is assisted, but we can learn to act like it. Children are no one's property, nor are they extensions of anybody's self. That means parental rights don't exist. That means the community, the collective, the comrades are in charge of raising the children in Sophie's world. The communization of care can be imagined in terms of a dialectic supersession of the concept of surrogacy. That means we are responsible for caring for every other comrade because every comrade is part of the collective. The contradictions of the contemporary gestational labor the contradictions of the contemporary gestational industry, that means birth industry, harbor possible openings for an insurrection of the waged and the wageless against housework. Oh, I can't wait to hear Sophie talk about that. Paid or unpaid human gestational labor, giving birth, is work under capitalism. Oh, saying the quiet part out loud. That gestators themselves can seek to redistribute, reorganize, reduce, and perhaps even abolish. Continue, Sophie.
To whom we owe comradeliness. They are never extensions of anybody's self. And that's true at the level of DNA and is true at the level of social relationality. So, children, according to, some radical lesbians writing in Off Our Backs, another sort of women's liberation magazine in 1969, wrote that children will belong to all of us. Children will belong to no one. Children will belong only to ourselves. as part of the revolutionary horizon of abolition of the family that they were interested in. Thirdly, the communization of care can be imagined in terms of a dialectic supersession of the concept of surrogacy, which means, that's quite fancy language. But what I'm trying to get at by saying that is that surrogacy makes no sense outside of a context of private property. If you think about what surrogacy is, it's the arrangement of baby making for somebody else. But given that, that children can be no one's property, or in an imminent, latent sense already are not, surrogacy is always a sort of, an ontological choreography built on sand, which is not to say it doesn't have real, devastating, tragic, and life-destroying consequences in the present, especially because of the conditions of the workers in the surrogacy industry, right? But surrogacy per se could be turned inside out and stand for an ethic and a relationality of standing in for one another and sort of challenging the private property basis of biogenetic kinship. The contradictions of the commodified gestational industry, right, harbor possible openings for an insurrection of waged and unwaged gestators against housework. And human gestational labor, be it paid or unpaid, as you can already tell, because I've said it a million times, is, in my opinion, work under capitalism that together, proletarian gestators can seek to redistribute.
Having babies is considered to be work under capitalism. Everyone understand that?
Waged gestators against housework. And human gestational labor, be it paid or unpaid, as you can already tell, because I've said it a million times, is, in my opinion, work under capitalism that together, proletarian gestators can seek to redistribute, reorganize, reduce, ameliorate, render pleasurable, perhaps in that sense, abolish. Okay, that's basically it. Yeah, I will stop sharing my screen and look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
I use my doctor title sometimes too, Sophie.
Thank you so much for that.
Ooh, we get a good long discussion. This
Very
is so
clear
exciting.
outlay. And I've read the book, but it was very helpful to hear you explain some stuff. And I can imagine people have questions. I don't know, raise your hand if you do, because I think there's lots to discuss here. No, Amy.
Hi, you can hear me. It's the first time I've opened my mic. Hi. Am I the only one who's raised their hand? Because I'm very open to not going first. I just want to say thank you so much for a great presentation and very generous as always. I'm one of those people who have read your work and has found it very liberating and consoling in my own experiences of mothering. So thank you so much for that. And I want to say I'm also a contributor on Patreon, and I want to encourage everyone who is as enthralled by this work as I am to consider doing so, because it's amazing and you will find always work nice together in the same place and talks and stuff. I want to say I'm very grateful for your intervention, because even if this is the 5th day of the conference, you are, I think, the first one to speak in a sort of techno-friendly manner, in a sense that we have discussed technology a lot of times, and mostly in the sense that it's humongously unequally. There's huge disparities in access to technology, life-saving technology. We've said that people sometimes need it. We're happy that it's there, but we haven't really thought with technology, and we haven't really thought how we might use it in the liberation we're all looking for. And I think one of the reasons is, midwifery is often thought as a profession, well, that's been kept away also from technology because it's being hoarded by, historically it's hoarded by medics, but also a lot of the tenets of midwifery are also to safeguard physiology. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about your quest to denaturalize, and I know it's only one of the aspects of your very rich talk. There's so much we could talk about, but
I'm
I
gonna
think
get drunk tonight.
I think we've discussed physiology many times this week, and I think we haven't really we've discussed the violence of ruling it, the violence of forcing people with technology to reappropriate their birth. We've talked about the alienation of being dehumanized, dispossessed, disembodied by technology in birth. We haven't really talked about the alienation that might be in physiology and in that birth. And I think a lot of midwifery discourse is often about safeguarding physiology, but then it sort of tends to spill over in sometimes safeguarding it from birthing people. And we see that it spills over in safeguarding the physiological process of puberty from trans kids. So it can be very problematic.
Alex,
and I was wondering if you could talk to that. And also
Thanks,
we've been trying to be inclusive and create space for so many different feminisms this week. Well, not all, but indigenous feminisms. And they seem very counterintuitive to your xenofeminist, techno-friendly discourse. And I was wondering,
I should get another beer.
How do we make space for people without alienating them in a way that is not productive and not liberating? So that's many questions. I'm sorry.
So sorry. Don't mean to inappropriately kind of say hi in a public forum, but it's so good to meet you. And I'm very grateful for your ongoing support, and also the wonderful job you just did summarizing so much of what I think is important to say. You sort of said a lot of it just now, I think. And thank you for the incredible drawings you've been doing at this conference, which have really helped me understand and follow.
The doodle lady.
As someone who's been in a different time zone and struggled to kind of engage as much as I would like every day. It's just been such a service. And so okay, maybe just picking up on the word xenofeminism that you introduced at the end. So as you know, I'm a kind of a friend and a critical interlocutor of xenofeminism, which has, I think, different iterations. The original collective with its xenofeminist manifesto in 2015 has quite different opinions on coloniality, white supremacy, and so on within it. And I recommend, and I mean, this is very much talked about by them, right? So I recommend personally Helen Hester's reiteration of her own xenofeminism in
Suzanne!
the book Xenofeminism with Polity Press in 2017, Suzanne. Which I think does a good job of cutting out the sort of techno euphoria that was in the original manifesto to some extent. I am indebted to Alyssa Battistoni for the suggestion that it might be possible, in fact, already is kind of inherent, suggested in Donna Haraway, that xeno and eco, xenofeminism and ecofeminism do not have to be thought of as a stable dichotomy at all, and can in fact and are already in the best sorts of practice and thought sort of hybridize themselves. And so Alyssa Battistoni has this phrase, Zeco-feminism, X-E-C-O, to kind of evoke that commitment. It's an interesting sort of journey I've been on, being sort of becoming aware that people understand my openness to, well, I'm not even sure openness, it's almost like a refusal to be totally closed, right? I'm not even sure I would say open, but that they perceive me as so very kind of techno curious and so on. And it depends what conversations I'm in, as to how much that comes across. So it's really good to be told that that's your impression for this conference. When I criticized Donna Haraway for a certain type of return to the goddesses, as I called it. You know, if you are familiar with the Cyborg Manifesto, it ends with the immortal lines, I would rather be a cyborg than a goddess. And my perception was that by 2017, there had been a bit of a pendulum shift back for her towards the goddesses. And I was like, oh.
Amy, Sophie's actually said a lot in this talk, so if you have questions about what she's saying, we can explain it to you. But you have to ask us a very specific question, and there's no shame in asking questions, and I want people to know that. Especially, like, I think I recognize you, but I don't think you've been to a lot of Sophie talks before. So if you have questions and you're not sure what she's saying, we will explain it to you. Sometimes it can be a lot, but she's not saying nothing. She's actually saying quite a bit today. Well, no, what I'm saying to you is that it is incorrect that she is saying nothing. It's not correct. So if you have questions, you are the only one who can tell us if you have questions. I'm not a mind reader. I might be very psychic. I'm not a mind reader though. So you need to let us know if you have questions about what she's saying. Because if your takeaway is that she's saying very little, that's just not accurate, okay? So we want to help everyone learn. You have to help us help you learn.
No, and never did I imagine that I would get to meet her. But I actually had breakfast with her in Santa Cruz after I wrote this essay, because she really walks the walk of treating everyone as a radical equal, even some nobody, you know, like me. And she was so angry, and she said, "You think you're not an eco-feminist? You are an eco-feminist." And I said, yeah, I am. I know. I'm not angry. Why would you think I would be angry at that? So I think for me, it might be useful to spell out that I see myself as sort of both and neither, maybe Zico, but there's this kind of important sensibility to do with the production of nature. That's a big sort of Marxist phrase from geography, where I was, you know, doing my PhD. And it kind of comes from that 1980s Cyborg Manifesto understanding of the body as contaminated. And I'm really glad you linked it to trans politics and trans liberation, because I do really see the trajectories of those, you know, those practitioners of abolitionist housework feminism, like Silvia Federici, as falling into a really sort of reactionary position vis-a-vis trans children and trans women in the present, because of that wrong turn, you know, that I see is increasingly kind of tempting to people in this kind of apocalyptic gender critical moment, you know, of sort of wanting to protect, you know, the body from the sort of pharmaco-capitalist cabals. I was like, no, we really need to be firm in our decolonial sort of quantum futurist understanding that, you know, the body is already, you know, part machine, right? That's not, we, you know, I'm not saying that's like, okay, again, not about it being okay, it just is. And learning to love the sort of, the monsters of our mode of production is a deep political imperative right now. And I'll shut up in a second, but what I'm reminded of is Heather Davis's extraordinary work, thinking about how to love toxic plastics, which are inside us, inside our fetuses, for that matter, right? And instead of just simply saying, you know, wow, the fact that there's plastics in our fetuses is horrifying, and we need to, I mean, yes, of course we should, you know, like, enact revolutionary climate justice, you know, but also there are plastics in our fetuses, and, you know, that they are the ones that we must love and that we have produced, you know, and that already makes you, in a sense, like a xenofeminist or a fascist, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Marjolein?
Yeah, thank you.
Hang on. We have a question. I love it when people ask questions, Amy. Thank you. Do you think these people live this out in their real lives? Yes. Yes. There is no reality in which this is performative. No reality at all. Do you think they have these opinions about their own children? Yes. Many of them have children. So, Amy, I'm going to give you a little advice. You said that you've been watching me for a long time. You know how I know that's not true? Or you haven't been paying attention the whole time, which is fine. I repeatedly talk about how this is an identity to these people. I repeatedly talk about how this is not performative. I repeatedly talk about how they absolutely have children and they absolutely do apply it to their children. This is real. The reason that conservatives think this is performative, quite frankly, is that conservatism is performative. Conservatives don't actually live their values. I can go to CPAC and tell you exactly which leaders of CPAC are fucking little boys in hotel rooms with a nose full of blow. Conservatism is what's performative in this country. These people are 100% real. They believe every single thing that they say. They apply it to their real lives. They live it out in their real lives. And yes, they do teach their children. Most Marxists and socialists in America are second or third generation Marxists. That means their parents were Marxists, their grandparents were Marxists. They pass it down.
It was a real pleasure and treat to listen to you, and such a new voice in this whole week. And it really resonated with me on just like Noemi also said, a different perspective on technology that I really resonated with also because I'm a biologist by study, and for the longest time I've been having these conversations with people about nature versus technology, because in my view there's not a real divide between that. The example I always give is that there's animals out there that also have technology, and we don't say that's not nature. But because we are humans, we sort of think of ourselves as not animals, which of course we are. And the thing is, I got a couple of thoughts running through my head. I'm sorry if it's also a bit rambly, but one of the things that I find difficult to reconcile for myself is the whole, how do we think and talk about technology in birth and in perinatal care? And how do we sort of not fall into this trap of thinking of
Yeah, Amy, it's been a long time since then, and we have delved deeper into this topic than anyone else on the internet, so it's just been a long time since then. That is like a distant memory to me. I barely even recognize it as part of my experience. But welcome back. Welcome back. Come watch Socialism with us. We will show you things that no one on Fox News is ever going to show you.
Technology as something that's only an intervention and not something that can be helpful. How do we not fall into the trap of thinking technology is not natural?
Don't worry about that.
So personally, I hate the term natural birth because
really
all births are natural because they involve us. But I also see the real issues with erasing indigenous practices and in the name of technology and progress. And so I guess I was wondering, and you've already, talked a bit about it in your answer to Noemi, is there a sort of a framework or something that we can have to maybe within this, I haven't heard of the term psychofeminism, to think about this? Is it even really about, nature versus technology, or is it about who has the control over these things? Do we have control over our own natural processes, like the abortion debate? Do we have control about the technology? Do we have the information and the access to the information who wields that technology? So I was wondering if you could sort of share your thoughts on this whole, how to sort of integrate all of these different practices without using or categorizing it as natural technology. And I guess that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, no pressure. Yeah, great. That's so well framed. Thank you. Yeah, great to meet you, Marilyn. So I guess I was thinking about how I tried to articulate it. I think at the beginning of Full Surrogacy Now, I talk about natural birthing as this is a sort of strange point to make maybe, but I was like, look, fine, people can call it that, like if you look at it, it's very obvious that it's a whole suite of training that you have to do. So how natural can something be when you're intervening so much to learn how to do it, and in that sense I think this is Kate Soper. There's nothing less natural than nature, right? We're constantly producing and learning nature, generating nature in order to practice it. Sometimes, and I think I was in that mood when I wrote that, I sort of just think, you can't get away from the language of nature, right? Nature is just this kind of this unfortunate sort of language we have to contain certain practices and make certain types of invisibilizing and validating and valorizing and devalorizing claims about various things, and it's so sort of chimerical and so baked in. I don't always know what sort of concrete affirmative politics can happen around sort of rejecting. Like, I think I would say denaturalization, like Naomi said, is sort of like, I think one of the most elemental sort of liberatory tools, in all struggles, and that said, I think denaturalization is always producing paradoxically its own forms of nature, like the denaturalized nature. And you get, I'm just speaking as someone who has done this time in geography, watching eco-Marxists fight each other over who is reifying nature in what sense at which point and it truly goes.
That's what
like
they do in geography now?
Just cross-eyed, hallucinatory sort of debates about philosophy and the production of nature. But I think as sort of so maybe the point is exactly as you said. It's about who has the control. It's too basic almost, right? It's not right, but it's kind of what Firestone said. Unless it's kind of a grassroots, bottom-up, gestator controlled technology, it's not going to be good for gestators. End of. Like that. I think this does in fact cut through this very vulgar Marxist point, cuts through so much of the sort of technophile, technophobe antagonism that structures everything in so many fields, right? But gosh, I don't know. Maybe I just pause there. I'm sorry. I think you said, again, a bit like with Noemi, you sort of evoked everything I would have tried to evoke already. Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else with a question? Two people. So Dante, I think you were first.
Oh no, let Nora go first. That's good.
Okay.
Hi Sophie, hi everyone. I'm not sure if mine is really a question. It's more like a reflection on, I guess, the intervention that Sophie's talk kind of makes into this summer school and this day so far, especially after just having heard the last couple of talks, especially Monse's talk just now, which was also really kind of affecting Sophie. In case you didn't hear that one, she's a traditional birth worker who's returned back to her community in Mexico after also training as a midwife in the US.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate you.
And just there's this kind of what might seem like a contrast, and I don't really think it is, but between, for example, Monse's and some other talks we've heard that are very much about kind of safeguarding and sort
Cheers,
of
everyone.
caring for gestation and birth and babies as something kind of very sacred and something very special, a very special contribution to a community and something that should be valued much more, which has also, of course, been like a kind of feminist argument that you know, birth and kind of parenting should be forms of care and forms of labor that should be valued much more and represented much more, and so on. And then the kind of real emphasis on the right to abortion and that being a choice not only in terrible circumstances, but a choice that we should all feel good to be able to make and to make use of.
Oh my God!
Which could seem somehow.
Abortion just shouldn't be a choice that we make in terrible circumstances. It should also just be a really positive choice that we all feel free to make.
Real emphasis on the right to abortion and that being a choice not only in terrible circumstances, but a choice that we should all feel good to be able to make and to make use of, which could seem somehow contradictory, but I don't think they are at all. But I think they should always be kind of thought together. But I think that that's really difficult and really complicated, and that in our world where, you know, things are becoming increasingly polarized, people increasingly feel like they have to take a stand and make decisions and like perform a kind of politics and take a side really quickly. I guess my question is about like complexity and ambivalence and how all these different things can kind of exist together, which I think is kind of the only way forward. But I also feel really like I don't have much hope that people are like willing to do that or to take the time for that to evolve in this way, where we can kind of like calmly sit with these kinds of complexities. Yeah, so I guess that's a kind of observation. I wonder if anybody wants to respond to that.
I think also, if I can say something to Nora, I think also that part of what makes it so difficult for us to think all these things at the same time is maybe not even that they're so impossible to think, but also that we're as midwives always having the conversations or fighting against obstetrics who have such a hegemonic and patriarchal technological way of thought and way of going about things, with which we are on a daily basis struggling, that therefore we also tend to be reactionary in that sense and sort of embrace physiology as our last haven, and also go more and more into the community that is devoid of a kind of technological care. So I think for us it's difficult to think it both because of how we're in the power struggle that we're situated in. And I think also that is really part of critical midwifery studies, to provide like another kind of space where we're free to think, you know, more on the terms of the amazing talk that Sophie Lewis gave, in these kind of more utopic ways of what we would actually want. Because I also know very few midwives who are very technophobic in the end. So yeah, just to comment. And I don't know if there's time for one more question, but we have 1 minute maybe. Sophie, thank you so much for your talk. It was very stimulating as always. And I was wondering, how would you translate an anti-work perspective, or maybe you could give us some hints to midwifery, because I think not only does labor do gestators, but it also does midwives, sometimes in very tiring and exhausting ways. And I think that many midwives also want to quit their jobs because of it. So how would you think of a future for midwifery from an anti-work perspective?
Yeah, you know what? I heard myself make that elision, and I was like, damn, this is a midwifery conference, not just a gestators conference. That's a great point. You know, it sounds sometimes like this, you know, far out kind of perspective, but it's already implicit in all sort of labor struggles, really. You know, when people demand, you know, higher wages, lower hours, you know, like benefits, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of, you're struggling against exploitation, and so you're struggling against work, because those are almost synonyms. And I think, you know, there need to be, you know, 100 times more, you know, doulas, like more midwives, you know, to distribute that labor. That sounds maybe just, you know, utopian or something, but it, you know, obviously we need to make sure that this isn't falling on so few people, right? So few people. Yeah, I mean, it's a problem with so many of the most, you know, extraordinarily central, important, you know, forms of labor, that they are shat on structurally, technical term, and, you know, devalued, right? And you know, we know this, and it remains, you know, the obscene sort of core of capitalist society, right? That the most important people in the world are the ones who cannot bear to do their jobs, who are given conditions for doing their jobs that are unlivable, you know. So I think anti-work midwifery practice is you know, yeah, it's pretty elemental, kind of demanding a livable workplace, a livable midwifery workplace, you know. Then yeah, do you agree? Do you have thoughts yourself? I mean, I think I've read you talking about strategies that might work a little bit to help to help sort of denaturalize the you know, the overwork culture in your industry. But I know it's the end. I think you should, you know, I want to hear from you, really. Thank you for your kind comments on my talk, and your attention on the last day. It's been so invigorating for me to be able to be part of this.
Were you gonna respond, Rodante?
Oh, am I? Yeah, but I don't know if we will go behind schedule. But yes, I think this is a work in progress. Thank you so much for your insight, Sophie. And I think that that both me and all the other midwives from the CMS collective are all the time trying to find strategies to make it livable and workable. But due to the nature of the work, it's highly complex. But yes, you're right. It starts with demanding a livable workspace and environment, and we have to imagine what that exactly is. I think, yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. So much to think about, and my head is also going like, oh, but what is work? And if we're really in community with each other, like, and I'm thinking about Monse's talk, maybe then that could be anti-work. That maybe it also has to do with the relationship that makes it feel like work or not. I'm gonna spin my head around all this in the 10 minutes we have a little break. And thanks so much, Sophie, and everybody, and all the contributions and questions.
Is this over, or do they have more? Because there's like half an hour left in this recording.
We're gonna see each other in 10 minutes again. Bye-bye.
That's it? What goes on for the rest? There's half an hour left in this. Are they talking? Sophie's gone. No one seems to be talking. I guess that's it. Guys. I guess we made it through the end. That was over earlier than I thought it was going to be. I thought the Q&A was going to go on a lot longer, but they just let it run for half an hour, apparently, with no one talking. All right, well, we still learned a lot today, and I think that was a really productive use of our time. We learned that socialists do indeed know that abortion is killing, which is, you know, I think progress. As a reminder, if you would like to support the work I'm doing, head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. This is where I post all my best stuff. This is a massive archive of primary source material, breakdowns of what the far left really believes. If you want to support the work I'm doing, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I cannot do it without you. We are going to be leveling up for the rest of the year. You guys don't know this yet, but I am working on things that I think you're really going to like. And so if you want to get in on the ground floor, head over there. Make sure you're signed up for email updates. If nothing else, signing up for email updates is free. If you want to support me and the work I'm doing, that's just a bonus, and I would really appreciate it. We are going to be back tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. We are probably going to be watching the Revolutionary Communists of America tomorrow. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now, because the Revolutionary Communists of America have been posting a lot of stuff. We might do a little intro with Tim Pool talking about communism, because apparently he talked about communism the other day and didn't do it very well. So we might listen to Tim Pool talk about communism and then listen to actual communists and see what they have to say. But I appreciate all of you. Happy Friday. We made it. We made it through another week. I only got through a beer and a half, but you know, one of those beers was 10% alcohol. Thanks to all of you. So I am drunk. And I'm going to go watch a horror movie and enjoy the rest of my Friday. I appreciate all you guys for hanging out. I will see you back tomorrow at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. And have a good one, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.